Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to my last lecture. Actually, this will be a shortcut review lecture, and for our 1322 CSE 1322, let me go to our schedule. Uh, so this is our schedule for 1322. So this will be our last review lecture. So actually I recorded the previous review lectures, but that were not uploaded. So I just want to briefly give you an overview of our upcoming test final, and actually this is mainly for the online students who could not attend in my lecture. So let us go to the study guide first. So as I passed this study guide on updated study guide on D2L, so actually it just covers the topics that we cover during our whole semester, and actually it has a list of almost everything that are the topics we discussed. So remember that our final exam will be cumulative, and it will be about 2 hours, about a 2-hour test. And so in the beginning of this semester we reviewed 1321 course content, and this is also a part of this course. So everything from 1321, the basic of our computing and programming, that will be a part of this test. And then mainly we focus abstract classes, interface, concrete class, okay, and then code tracing, coding uses, rules of uses, and then we define and code class with members, variables, and constructors, getter and setter, and we discuss how to override the toString method, and we discuss recursion for code tracing and coding. We know that we discuss some recursive problems, like how the recursion method is coded with a base. For instance, if we want to find the factorial method, a recursive factorial method, we consider base equal to 1. If I equal to 1, then we return 1, that means factorial of 1 equal to 1. Otherwise we return n times so I times factorial of I minus 1, or if I can say n. So if n equal to 1, then we return 1, otherwise we return n times factorial of n minus 1. So if you understand the factorial of recursion method, that will be a startup, and then you can use that foundational knowledge to develop other recursive methods. So we also discuss pass by value and pass by reference. Also, although pass by reference is applicable for C# only, but there was also needed for Java students. We discussed that, and we discussed GUI programming and event handler and events. So for these sections, GUI programming and features of parallel programming and multi-threading programming, you do not need to do coding for the final test. Just understand what is GUI programming, what is events, what is event handler, and what are their use, what are the features of parallel and multi-threading programming. So just in like essay type questions. Okay, then we discuss two-dimensional array coding and creation and searching an element in a two-dimensional array. For instance, there are some question. There is a question in your test 1 or test 2. I cannot remember. I will go through that. And then we discuss linked list, append and prevent operations, traversing, and then so for linked list we discuss only one. We discuss both uh, singly linked list and doubly linked list, but for the test you need only singly linked list. Okay, then we discuss stack operation, push and pick and pop, and display the current state of stack. And then we discuss queue operation, enqueue and dequeue operation. Okay, and we discuss exception handling. Okay, we discuss the definition and difference of checked and unchecked exceptions, and we discuss file input output operation. For instance, if you have a file, we discuss how to create a data file, or if you have a file, then if you have some data, for instance, in a file, how to read from the data file, or how to write to the data file, and how to close the data file. Okay, use and importance of exception handling mechanism in file IO operation we discuss with examples. Okay, so and finally we discuss creation and traverse of binary BST. We discuss in order, pre-order and post-order operations for BST. So these are the actually these are all of the topics that we discussed. Now I would like you to cover all of these topics as much as you can, definitely. And let me go through our previous test questions. So some of the test questions will be repeated from the previous test 1, test 2 and test 3, but not one. So in our test 1 we discussed this in sorting algorithm. For instance, we gave a data set, and then we asked to show how all inner and outer loops entries in each space of the algorithm it works. We did not ask to write algorithm. Okay, and then we asked you to define a two-dimensional array. For instance, a 3 by 3 matrix is an example of a two-dimensional array. Then we asked to find we asked to you to declare an array, assign values, like for instance these values with an array, and then we discuss to find some of the, for instance, wall event numbers, or we may ask you to find the lowest or greatest even number or odd number. If you know how to do two-dimensional array operation, you should be able to do this kind of question. And we gave some codes, and then we asked to find which one is true or which one is false based on the given code. So in this code you need to, if you are given this kind of code segment, then you need to look at the public, private or static modifiers, and then we also need to look static keyword, and then return type or return statements as well as. Okay, then we asked how to create a class, how to declare a class. So you have to declare a class with some given attributes, given properties. Okay, then we asked you to write getter and setter methods, and to display the create an object and to display the object on screen. Maybe you can do it by overriding toString method or using any other method like display method. Okay, so this was test 1, and then in our test 2 we covered string operations. Okay, so for string operations there are some differences for C# and Java, but whatever language you know, so you should focus only one language, either C# or Java. So for string operation, mainly we discussed uh, string length and substring method. There are some different versions of substring methods. We discussed those and with examples and code. So these were we tested. And mainly we discuss abstract class and interface, how to declare an abstract class, how to create constructor. Remember that an abstract class can contain a constructor or more than one constructor, overloaded constructor it can contain. So we have to write a class, for instance animal, to with animal detail abstract method. So this abstract method will not be declared in the abstract class, will not have any body in the abstract class, but it will have its implementation in the subclass like cat class. Okay, and then we ask similar questions with interface. Okay, so this is a question for test 2 that might be repeated, and based on the previous animal class and animal abstract class, animal sub interface, cat concrete class, dog concrete class, and object is a built-in class or interface in C++, built-in class in C++. We asked you, we gave some statements of object generation. We asked to write which statements were incorrect. If you are given this kind of questions in future in any test, be careful about whether we asked for incorrect or correct answer. So if you understand, so in order to answer these kind of questions, you need to understand how objects are created. So what are the function or limitation of abstract class? Okay, because an abstract class cannot be instantiated, so this statement will be false. And we also know class hierarchy. So one thing that I gave you, so if you remember that, so this one, for this one, if say all cats are animal, okay, if you go this way, so and if it is you get true answer, then it is true. But this one, all cats are cats, this is true. But what we say animal, cat is a subclass of animal, okay, but we cannot say all animals are cat. Okay, definitely there are some animals that are not cat, so this is why this statement will be incorrect. So will be answer here. This is since we asked for incorrect statement. Okay, and here an interface cannot be instantiated, so this is a wrong statement, and likely an abstract class cannot be instantiated, so this is incorrect also. And all cats are object element, yes. Okay, all dogs are objects, so this are true. So okay, and all objects are not dog, and a dog is a eye mammal, so this is should be true. And so that was the last question for test 2 and test 3. Okay, we covered, okay, so reference parameter in C sharp format, so this is only for C sharp. Okay, so I asked you that I have some programs. Actually I have all programs available in my GitHub account, github.com/CSITEd experts, and if you search for 1322. Okay, so this is the my project for CSE 1322 review Java and review underscore C#. Okay, actually I put all of my codes over here. So you see I have 30 commits over here. If you go to the src folder, and you see that all of the programs I discussed during the lecture period I have over here. Okay, and this is for Java and this is for C#. I have almost all programs. Okay, I have also my Replit account. If you go to replit.it/@ Mokhtar, my first name, then you will see all of my programs. And if you search for reference parameter example 1 and example 2 in C#, so you will see complete program here, and you can practice this program. In order to understand how the reference ref keyword works. Then once you understand this question, you should be able to answer this kind of question. Okay. Sorry, be careful about that. This will be the output for the print line 2, and this will be output. We asked output for print line 1 here. Don't mismatch, please. Okay, and then we asked to write a recursive method that returns a string recursively. I'm telling you, there are multiple ways to reverse a string, okay, recursively. Okay, so but I like to make it as simple as possible. Okay, so for instance, let me show you if I have my code open. I usually actually use 2-3 versions, but there are multiple versions. You see that I have gathered like almost 4-5 versions of recursive method. This is one version. This is the simplest version. If it is empty, then return s, otherwise return a recursive s dot substring 1 starting from 1. That means leaving the first character, then the first character will come over here, is dot character at 0. This is the simplest way, but you can make it more complicated using other versions like these versions or these versions, but I don't recommend you to use this version or this version. These are the more complicated ways, so I like to use either of these 2 or 3 versions. So make your program as simple as possible. Okay, in another test we also asked to find the length of a character recursively. Okay, so we also asked push and pop operation for stack, and similarly for queue there are enqueue and dequeue operations. Okay, and singly linked list we asked for find by id. Okay, find a node by id. There are simple implementation. Let me see if I have that code over here. Singly linked list explain. Do I have this there? Okay. Okay, search by id. So if id is given, so we need a node. This node is head, for instance, let us head. So is found, like it make it boolean, is false. Then if empty, if empty, then we'll return empty linked list. There we don't need to search anything, right? If our linked is empty, then we do not have any element in it, so we cannot search. Otherwise, while node not equal to null, we say if node dot id, since our node contains id and name, so id equal to id, that means we found a matching linked list, right? So then we say is found equal to true. So other also, and while we can say, if we can say else over here, what actually we don't need to else because it will come up automatically over here. So actually we are using if within while loop. So here, so it will go through the next one. So this is the important statement, so it will go to the next node. Okay, so in this method can be implemented in different way. It says return type is void, so we need to have a print statement in order to show whether, to display whether the node is found or not found. So based on the value of I found, so if it is found, then we are making I found equal to true. Otherwise, by default, I found equal to false, right? So if we say if it is found, then we say that found the node with id is given id. And else we say, sorry for the interrupt. So here its return type is void, so I should have a print statement. I can have a return type integer type, okay, or boolean type. For instance, if I say return type is bool or boolean, then I would at the end I would return my is found, okay, over here at the all the end. Or if I say is return type is integer, then I can say, okay, so if it is found, then return 0 or 1, or if it like this, for instance, we asked in the question here. Okay, so this return type is it, what we will do, we will say return 0 if found, or if not found, return a -1. So that means in this case we can use a return type integer over here, and if we say if it is found, then return 0 over here. Otherwise, return -1. Okay, so that is the question for in previous test, but this test, for this test, study for append and prepend operations. Okay, and also a review for enqueue and dequeue operation, and for stack, push and pop operations. Enqueue and dequeue operations are for queue, and push and pop operation for stack. Okay, so and in addition to the previous test, in the final few lectures we discuss BST creation, right? One of the things that you will get a question, BST creation, and you will get a question from file IO operation with exception handling. Okay, these are the steps are not tested previously. So that's it. Actually, I'm sorry that I could not concise this with a shortcut syllabus or topic, since this test will be a cumulative test and everything within the syllabus can be tested. But if you are regular in the lecture, uh, and if you are regular in study and programming, then you should be good to graduate, to pass this course, and you should be good to do well in this course. And if you do well in this course, as I mentioned many times, then you should be good to graduate with computer science or software engineering. Mainly the two courses, data structure, the course data structure is the foundation. This course will be the foundation of data structure course. So I wish you good luck. Thank you so much. Bye bye.